Yeah. So we are online, and thank you, David, for agreeing to come on this podcast again. It's been a long time. I think the
Thank you.
last time we spoke was, I think it's been more than 6 months. And I
I
think
think
we
it was
spoke,
Border Gavaskar Trophy, wasn't it?
yeah, about a Gavaskar trophy, and it turned out right the way we predicted. I think I thought
Mhm.
India would lose it because of the wickets they were making, but well, yeah, I mean, things have changed. So yeah, I mean, we are back again. There's the World Cup, and suddenly we see the rise of interest in ODI cricket again. I think since Asia Cup, and I was actually, turning on the TV to watch South Africa and Australia more because those matches were very interesting. I have not seen a series involving Australia in a long time where from 2-0 you lose 3-2, So it's been
True,
a while.
true.
It's been a while, and
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so we are back at it again, and of course, we have the discussing points today. But what I wanted to say, so basically, when you look back, last say 5 6 World Cups, because I started watching from '99 to from 2003. 2003 was more like my interest levels were just there. So I always remember the team which mostly started with rank one. You know or ICC rankings. So I'm not saying, hinting anything here. Basically, what I mean to say is the teams which were the best won the World Cup, you know.
Yeah,
So
this is
let's not
true.
say
This
about
is true.
rankings because I think in this cycle, after the 2019 World Cup, the rankings are not really a correct representation of, how the teams are. But having said that, if 2015 kind of, Australia and New Zealand were the best, so, they were the best teams which ended up playing the finals. 2019, of course, I think even before it started, we all knew it was England's World Cup to win, and they won it. And semi-finalist, yes, I think New Zealand were a good team. I don't know if you could say they were the second best team. India wasn't. I know that. Australia wasn't. So yeah, you could say England and New Zealand were the teams which had to play the finals. Coming to 2023, you have not seen ODI cricket for in 2020, 2021. All of a sudden, India is ranked one, which, of course, I mean, I feel nice, but are these rankings giving any hint, or do you say there are any clear favorites? And who are your top four in, in the semifinals and in the World Cup? So that's what I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it's true what you say. I mean, I think nations are not playing as much ODI cricket as they used to. They're resting players. There's these 3 formats. Some people are like Ben Stokes are unretiring just for this
Yeah,
competition. Some people are going to be retiring after this competition. So I mean, for me, I mean, you can look at the warm-up games as some kind of indicator, but again, there's some kind of experimentation there. England have been playing as just now a series against Ireland,
yes,
and I think I think Joe Root maybe played one game or was available for one game, but the squad was England's B or C team. So
yes,
I mean, they're not. It's a completely different set of players. And
yes,
then there was a warm-up game today I was seeing against England versus India. Didn't
yes,
happen.
yes. Yeah,
Um, so it's not so much we can say about the form of some teams. And then you have other nations like the Netherlands who haven't played any ODI cricket
yeah,
recently. So again, okay, they're obviously outsiders, but we simply don't know much about them in 50 over cricket outside of their games against associate nations. So in terms of who I think is actually going to go well, I think the format really helps the theoretically best teams to actually come through, because a lot of people have criticized the World Cup because it's only 10 nations. But for the strong nations, they're going into one group. Every team plays every other team once. So
yes,
before we get to the knockout stages, every team's going to play 9 games, 45 matches in all.
yes,
So I think the cream is going to rise to the top. Who I think is probably going to make the semi-finals, I'm going to say England, India, Australia, and then it comes down to the fourth nation, and they're always kind of written off a little bit. I'm going to say it's going to be New Zealand.
Okay.
So
the usual.
For me, it's out of New Zealand, Pakistan, or South Africa, and I'm going to go for New Zealand. I think Pakistan have lost Shah, South Africa have lost Nortje. South Africa typically don't have a great record when it comes to these ICC tournaments, yes, despite what they might do in the warm-up games. Yes, they've obviously just competed very well against Australia. Yeah, so I mean, of course, we will see. I mean, the thing about England and India and Australia is, if you're playing 9 games, if you win 6, you're almost certain to make the semi-finals. So that means those nations not to make the semi-finals, they have to lose 4 matches and only get 5 wins.
Yeah.
Who's going to beat them? How are they going to lose 4 matches? Who are India going to lose to?
England.
In the competition. 4 matches.
Maybe England, yes, could be. You don't know. I think sometimes South Africa have always beaten India in World Cups, barring South Africa have always beaten Australia. Yeah, I mean, India played the best team in the 3rd ODI, apart from, say, Shubman Gill. So they won with the B team and they lost with the A team. And
exactly. No. So much depends on
I can say, okay, I mean, there are 3 losses. It's not a given. England, it will be a tough game, And Michael once said the team which beats India is going to win the World Cup. I think the team which beats England is going to win the World Cup. And yeah, I think
so. I mean, I'm obviously a bit biased being English in origin. But I mean, it's hard to look past the English batting lineup. They're strong. They have people who have experience. They can go at 10 and over. They can rebuild with people like Joe Root. Stokes is back. They can afford to leave people like Roy out of the squad. They can bring Harry Brook in
out of nowhere. Yes.
Yeah, and they bat. They bat pretty much all the way down to number 9, sometimes even lower than that. They have such a dangerous team that has experience with Butler as well. I could see them maybe losing 2 matches, but in the group stage. But then that's going to get them through to the semi-finals.
Yeah, I think if you think that way, which teams are going to lose? Well, I see Pakistan losing a few, and that's because of their bowling, which all of a sudden looks too weak. All of a sudden, it looks.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, they have Shaheen Afridi, but now they don't have Shah alongside. So he's under a lot of pressure suddenly.
Yes.
And some of the other guys they brought in, they don't necessarily have great international records so far. And then they rely hugely on Babar Azam and Rizwan at the back.
Yes.
So I can see them like they did in the T20 World Cup. They came unstuck against teams like Zimbabwe. I could see the same happening here, to be honest.
I mean, in the last World Cup, they were the only team who beat England, apart from Sri Lanka.
True. I mean, you just never know.
Yeah, you never know. But Pakistan is a team. I think I can, if you count, you could say they could lose 4. They could lose a few.
That's what I think.
Pakistan and South Africa are teams which, have historically, performed something like this in the World Cups. And I mean, for me, I think, like you said, India, Australia, England, they are a certain for me. And for the 4th spot, I don't think Pakistan. I would have loved to see Pakistan, but I think it will either be New Zealand or South Africa. But again, New Zealand side, yeah, yesterday's game was a shocker because after the way they played in England, yesterday's match actually surprised me. They didn't have their main bowlers bowling, and Pakistan went all out bowling with their, all premier bowlers. And, the game New Zealand played yesterday, that kind of game I've not seen New Zealand. They win, but New Zealand don't, blast off, everything.
Not normally, no.
Yeah, so
they could have chased 400 the way they were going quite easily. I suppose the only sort of negative for New Zealand might be the sort of the fitness of Caden Williamson, because apparently he's already going to be out of their first match. So this knee injury clearly hasn't fully healed. So we'll see there. But they have many other good players, Phillips, Conway. On the bowling side, Sodhi and Santner are going to be very useful in Indian conditions. So I really feel they're always like the dark horse to do well. My prediction before this competition was it was going to be another England v New Zealand final somehow.
Could be. I think, I somehow feel that because with these rains coming in all of a sudden, and maybe the plan was to have flat decks, but if they are able to make some tricky wickets for some big matches, say for India, Australia, England, I think that is where the teams will struggle. Teams like England, India already struggled against Bangladesh on that Asia Cup track. So I think, I mean, the only way you could spice it up is to give them a little, sluggish wicket. But yeah, I mean, with all these rains, I think, because it's the climate is changing in India, and this is the time where actually it doesn't rain that much, but it does, in some parts of the country. And if the wickets remain a little moist, I think Ashwin will be a very good choice then,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and India, they have the pressure, but they also have the home advantage, and they can design the pitches to suit them. So
because the one thing I've not,
I think
yeah, of course, yeah. Go ahead.
No, I think I was going to make exactly the same point you were going to say. So
what I wanted to say was, I think I have not seen England play apart from them touring India, I've not seen England play on those sluggish wickets for a very long time. And I would like to see how they perform. ODI.
Me too. I mean, this is the only real doubt. Obviously, that most of their players now have some IPL experience, but that's played on pretty good wickets generally. So can they play this aggressive baseball style game against the turning ball, against three spinners maybe, when it really matters? Potentially like in the semi-final when it really matters. Can they deliver that in India? Maybe playing India in the semi-finals.
Maybe in test matches, I think they have the team to do it. They did do it in. I mean, they can do it. I believe so. I would like to believe if it was test matches, I think in Jan when they tour India, I think they'll be much more prepared. But in ODIs, I think this will be a little bit of a surprise if you present them a very slower spinning wicket against, say, like a team like Sri Lanka, who we right away immediately, and you never know. Sometimes, the pitch does the trick.
That's true. I mean, and we're not really talking about Sri Lanka, but of course they did pretty well until the final with the Asia Cup. They've actually been on quite a good run in ODI cricket. So in my mind, I'm not even giving them a chance of making the knockouts, but that's probably unfair. They have maybe have as good a chance as South Africa and New Zealand, but we will see.
So, David, with this World Cup also, a lot of players are going to play the last World Cup this time. And these are the players who have been playing from 2011. That is when Tendulkar played his last. That is when probably a lot of players, Jayawardene played his last, I think. So a lot of players, Virat Kohli played with Tendulkar. Ashwin played his first World Cup then, missed out one in the previous one. Kane Williamson probably wasn't there. It was Ross Taylor in 2011. If I go back to, 3 World Cups behind and see, it's been a long one. People like Tamim Iqbal, he could have almost played this World Cup again for Bangladesh, but he's not.
And I think he would have done, wouldn't he? But if he hadn't been injured, he would have played. And it's almost certainly his last one.
Yes,
but
yes.
There's, as you say, there's so many players who this is almost certainly their last one. I mean, if you just go around the major teams, Ben Stokes, I don't think he's going to have the fitness to play another one. He's unretired for this one. Josh Butler, another guy who's it. He's going to be sort of, I guess, 37, 38.
And I think English players don't hang around that much. I think at least even in tests, apart from Anderson, I think they all call it quits when I've not seen somebody hanging around after 35 for ODIs.
What was sort of Alistair Cook? He was about 35, wasn't he, when he quit?
Yeah.
Mostly,
yeah.
You have to. Not many players make it to 40. I'm thinking. Before Anderson, probably the last guy was Alex Stewart, 2003. He retired at 40.
Yes.
But yeah, you're right. Not many. Yeah. I mean, that's just in England. I mean, in the other teams, the same is really true. I mean, how many Indian players other than Tendulkar played to 40 in recent years?
I think one of the reasons why Indian players play, matches close to 300 is because they play till 37, 38, and that's the reason why they play matches in excess of 300.
But if you think about it, I mean, that means this is Ashwin's last World Cup.
Yeah,
Rohit Sharma's last World Cup.
Yes. Kohli's
and Virat Kohli's last World Cup. He's almost 35.
Jadeja's last World Cup.
Yeah, also. So, I mean, there's a whole host of
Shami's last
stars, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then you look at Australia. I mean, Steve Smith, David Warner, Mitchell Starc. They're all gonna retire, aren't they?
I think David Warner might call it quits by the end of this year. I think that's what I was hearing. The Pakistan
test. And everything. Everything.
So I mean,
just ODI.
Yeah, not just ODI. I think he is gonna call it quits. I mean, he's played a lot, and I'm very surprised David Warner has not played 200 one-day matches, and very surprising for the amount of cricket they play. I think India, Australia, and England are the ones who play the most number of games. But I guess Australia and England will have more number of test matches than India, probably 10, 20 test matches more. So I mean, it is what it is. So anyway, I mean, it was just something to look upon, and what I wanted to this is one interesting point which I wanted to talk to you. So now that the World Cup is in India and it's not in England or say Australia, where now many people say that you should pack your team with all-rounders. Till you have batters till 5 and you have all-rounders till 8. And I had this interesting, commentary when I heard from one of those Indian guys. Now, I'm not going to name, otherwise they'll catch me if it is not the right guy. One of them said that the problem with having all-rounders in those tricky wickets in India is, what Sanjay Manjrekar once said, you're a bits and pieces player. And you get caught. You get caught. You are stuck on the wicket, and somewhere, I'm not justifying anything. Somewhere, I think India's batting is not clicking with Ravindra Jadeja, and I also think there will be a lot of teams who have packed those all-rounders. A lot of those players will either struggle to bat or struggle to bowl. Who are doing both. So I just want to, get your views in a country like India, I'm saying, where, say, you don't have the flat decks. Okay, even if you have the flat decks, either ways, if it is flat decks, you got a bowl. If it is bad wickets, you have to bat. You think five
Yeah,
spe- five
exactly.
five specialist bowlers and six batsmen with probably one all rounder is a good way to approach, or you go the New Zealand or Australian way, and you know, what do you
Mhm.
think? Is a combination. I mean, nothing is right or nothing is
I mean,
wrong. Yeah.
no, I mean, I actually think you go with the specialists. I think, you know, I've seen teams when they pack their side with people who, who can theoretically bat. Sometimes they do it all the way down to almost number 11. I mean, Australia have sometimes had Ashton Agar coming in
Yes.
at 10 and 11. And you think that's giving you some kind of protection if things go wrong. Actually, I think it's making you vulnerable. And every batsman thinks, oh, I can rely on someone else coming in further down the order. Then you find out that you can't, because actually conditions are difficult and you don't have any specialist batsmen who can handle them. Suddenly you collapse. I've even seen this, in T20 cricket, sometimes with England when things don't go very well. They often have Adil Rashid coming in as low as number 11. He's a good batsman. He's made centuries in first class cricket, but it doesn't work. You become more vulnerable. So
Okay.
actually, I think having having a few tail enders is not necessarily a bad thing. It encourages responsibility. And that is actually the great thing about 50 over format, is you actually can have players who are a bit more responsible. You sometimes think you can't, but you have a long time to bat.
I mean, why I say this is because when I, giving the Indian example, my personal opinion is why they go for Shardul over Shami, and why they were so persistent
Mm-hmm.
with Aksar was because I have not seen Aksar bowl in ODIs for a long time. It's because the way he bats.
Mm-hmm.
And for Shardul,
Yeah.
because he gives that option to bat. Because another big problem which
Mm-hmm.
India has
Exactly.
had with Jadeja is not batting in ODIs, not in tests, in
Yeah.
limited overs cricket. Jadeja is not batting. You need his bowling. You need Shardul to bowl and bat because Shami can't bat. You need Aksar to bat because Kuldeep can't bat. These are the combinations
Boomerang. Yeah.
which is why I asked this question, because again, you have players like Cam Green who can bowl a bit, bowl five, bat a few,
Yeah.
he can
Although he
squeeze
is,
out some
I find
overs.
his bowling is, for me in ODI cricket, his bowling is vulnerable.
Yes.
Um, and this is the thing. I mean, if you're going to be an all rounder, is it okay just to be, averaging 20, strike rate 100 with the bat, and with the ball going at 8, 9, 10 and over? Is that acceptable for your team? That's the question, isn't it? For me, I mean, when I look at the Australian lineup, I see Zampa, I see Hazelwood, 10 and 11, who cannot really bat.
They
Either
can't
of them.
really bat, yeah.
But they're probably the two most important bowlers for me, along with Stark, obviously, who doesn't have a good batting record in ODI anyway. In ODI, you can consider him just to be a bowler.
Yeah.
So you take those three guys, not there as all-rounders. And yet, for me, that's one of the main reasons why I still think Australia are going to make it to the semi-finals. It's those specialists.
Okay. Okay. Well, why I say this again is because I remember one of the two ODIs, I think, when Australia came, the last three ODIs, the first one and the second one, when Rohit and Virat didn't play. I remember, I think one of those matches, India gave a target of 400. Of course, because it rained, so the match became easier. But India almost played the same team in the first and second, and India just had five specialist bowlers. So 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, and there was nobody whom I have ever seen
Yeah.
him bowl. So if, somebody else was required, then you are gone. I mean, look at what
Then you
happened.
have a problem.
Look at what happened to
Yeah.
Pakistan in that ODI against India when all of a sudden Shah had to be pulled off, Haris Rauf had to be pulled out, and
Mhm.
India went on a killing spree because you don't have anyone to bowl. This is also
Yeah,
an issue which
that's true.
this will be a
And
bigger issue.
actually,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if we look at this from the opposite side, to take the different view, this is an advantage a team like New Zealand has, because they have all of these sort of bits and pieces cricketers,
Yes.
people who can contribute in different ways, and that is actually in the main why they have done so well.
Even
So,
Donald
although
Mitchell bowls.
yeah, exactly. I mean, although I'm saying having specialists is the way to win the World Cup, you can actually do very well with these people who can make contributions with bat and ball all the way through. So, yeah,
Yeah, I agree with this. And just to add, last point on this one, see, I think in India, I think the kind of wickets which we are gonna get is you are defending 400 or you're defending 220. There's not going to be, I think,
no,
either it's
nothing
too
in
low
between.
or too high. There's not going to be, I think,
Yeah.
if a team can score 320, you can't say you are safe. But if the
Not
pitch is
these
so
days.
bad that you make 220, you might win. So,
This is true. I mean, yeah, very much. I mean, I was looking back at the earlier this week at the 1992 World Cup, which was the
yeah,
first one I ever sort of watched when I was very young. There were only two instances of teams making 300, and it happened in the same game, Sri Lanka, Zimbabwe. And now, really, if you score 300 in a 50 over match, it's not necessarily a good score. 400 has become the new 300.
yeah,
450 has become the new 325. And
yes.
I'm even thinking in this World Cup, it wouldn't shock me at all if one team scored 500 for the first ever time.
I mean, I think if you have matches like what we had in Indore and Rajkot,
Exactly.
I think I'm definitely counting on England. I think maybe against
Mhm.
one of those nations, England, India, I
Yeah,
think
I think
they could do it. Yeah, even Australia can do it, I
I
think.
think so. I mean, England played the Netherlands, was it last year or the year before,
498.
in Amsterdam,
Yeah, yeah,
498,
yeah.
and it could so easily have been the first 500. I mean, they were one ball away from it,
Yes.
and I could see that happening again. If they got us a not so big ground, flat pitch, people like Butler got in, I could see a massive score. And yeah, and actually, that England second team that was playing Ireland this last week, there was a
Yeah,
game that
even
was
they,
rained on.
yeah, yeah.
They were on 281 off 31, I
I
think.
think, yeah,
That
Duckett
two
had the
was
100
heading
and
towards
the match got
450.
washed off. Yeah, they were
Yeah,
heading
but it would
towards
have been
the one.
interesting to see what would have happened. So I mean, yeah, I think it could happen. But the point you made is true. I mean, if teams are restricted to 220 and it's a sort of slow, stodgy pitch, I could see them winning. I could see them having more of a chance of winning than if they make 320. It's true. Um, we
I
will we
mean,
will
if you
see.
get a team like
But the times
Bangladesh,
have definitely changed.
yes, yes, of course, of course. I mean, see, if you have a team like Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, say playing against Australia or India, and they give you a target of 250, and suddenly you have the Mehdi
Yeah.
Hassans and Velilage, and it's difficult. I mean, I saw it in the Asia Cup how Sri Lanka beat Pakistan and Bangladesh beat India. Of course, India were in the finals, otherwise they would have been in a spot of bother. And these are the things also which I think will be interesting in the World Cup if they make such pitches, because I don't know if you can really doctor pitches in the World Cup, but I mean,
Mhm.
let's see if you could do it.
Yeah, I mean, they won't be all the same for sure. And one thing I noticed though is that although teams are scoring 300 plus like all the time now, you don't really see those scores chased down that often. I know we did
Yeah,
yesterday with New Zealand in the warm-up game, and occasionally. But if teams are making 350, 370, how often does that get chased down? So I think batting first is probably going to be a huge advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. And also the fact is, again, in India, you have that dew coming in and, well,
Yeah, another issue.
yeah. But again, if you have 400 on the board, I think you can still do it because, yeah, I mean, but I still think you should have more than 5 bowlers for those 50. I think going in with, somehow, I'm not so convinced about the Indian bowling approach, but then I think, yeah, I mean, they know better, but yeah, well.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you don't really have those guys who can, like when you had Tendulkar, he could come on, bowl a bit of leg spin or something. England have Joe Root, and they have someone, there's always a kind of a sixth or a seventh bowling outlet. But if you only go with 5, and one of those guys is injured or going around the park, what do you do?
So, David, who are your, I want to know who are your top 3, players to watch out for? Can be from any country, could be new players. And I would like to know, apart from the usual suspects, apart from the Ben Stokes and the Rohit Sharmas, even the Gills, 3 players who you think are going to stand out in the World Cup. And then once the World Cup finishes, we can come back and have a look at how we fared.
I think for me, I mean, England have just selected Harry Brook.
Harry Brook, yes.
I think he is potentially dynamite. He hasn't done that much yet.
Or is he going to bat in the middle order? He's going to open, right?
Well, this is another thing we're not sure about. I mean, he's coming in for Jason Roy, who is an opener.
Yes,
but I think it's going to be, we'll see. It could be Bairstow and Malan opening, and with Brook lower down. I don't know, but I think he has he's a kind of a Peterson-like batsman.
I think they might drop Root for a few games also, just to accommodate.
This is not out of the question. To some people that would just be crazy, but he hasn't had that good a run.
I mean, he has terrific numbers in ODIs as well, surprisingly, but
but not recently.
Not
recently. And then you look around. I mean, there's the obvious people that obviously Kohli and Babar Azam and people like that. But I mean, if you want to look outside of the main nations, I always look at people like Sikandar Raza in Zimbabwe. Very talented player. Always seems to produce 1 or 2 special things for them. Mostly with the bat, but he's also useful with the ball. So I'd look there. And then, in bowling.
What do you think about Klaasen?
Like
what do you think about Henry?
Say again, sorry.
What do you think about Henry Klaasen?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's definitely someone to watch. Definitely. He's potentially he's world class, isn't he? So.
And I wanted to also, take this opportunity to discuss South Africa's captain, Temba Bavuma. So, good average, terrific average. On paper, amazing record for last few months, 1 year or so. But you would still think that he's not comfortable out there in the limited overs international. And somehow you get that feeling. Sometimes you have those numbers, but I mean, I don't know. Do you feel the same, or for me, I think he's just not there.
I feel it about like a few of the South Africans. I mean, you can add Van Dusen to that list. People like that who have produced good numbers.
Yeah,
but you just have these sort of lingering doubts about whether they're going to produce it in the major competition. I guess this is all. It's partly them, and it's also partly just the history of South Africa in these tournaments, and their tendency to fall short when it really matters. So, and maybe that's influencing our thinking a bit. But yeah, we will see. But for me now, South Africa are kind of the underdogs.
But I mean, you don't think, say you have already chosen the top 4. Yeah, I mean, mine and yours top three are the same, but I somehow, yeah, I mean, I don't see them knocking off, you know, I don't see them winning more than 5 games. That's the
Well,
problem.
that's it, isn't it? And I mean, they've obviously lost Nortje as well, who was a great bowler, but they've
Yeah.
still got, they've still got Red, they've still got Janssen and other people who can bowl pace. But yeah, getting 6 wins, that for me is because I just feel they could potentially lose to anyone. Like we saw in the T20 World Cup when they had that crucial match against the Dutch
Yeah.
and they lost. No one beforehand was saying that they were going to lose that game. But then afterwards, when they lost, people weren't really that surprised that it happened.
Yeah. And, even these associate nations might surprise a few. So I'm guessing those few would be, I don't want to hurt anyone, but those few could be Sri Lanka, South Africa, yeah, I hope not India, but yeah, I mean, these are the teams who suffer in the hands of these guys when they all of a sudden play them on, those tricky wickets in India. If it is a flat deck, yeah, I mean, yes, 400, but the moment it turns a bit, that's where suddenly the game is, you know, yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Why I was talking about Klaasen is because for last 8 months from the IPL, and I mean, I've been watching Klaasen in all his leagues, following his course, and he's been terrific. But the whole problem with South Africa is one guy scoring 174 and David Miller scoring, say, 80, 90, and then you have Aiden Markram who scores 150 in 1 year. So he's again. You have those players like Van der Dusen and Aiden Markram who just perform once a year, and that is how South Africa have been in last so many years. They lost that.
And then what?
Yeah.
What do you do when Klaasen and Miller don't perform? Which it's going to happen. Obviously, at some point, what do you fall back on then? This is the advantage I see with sort of Australia, England, and India. Look at their top sixes. That's pretty strong. If two of the guys fail, the other four are going to chip in, contribute. But can't be so confident with South Africa or Pakistan.
But do you think South Africa is the dark horse of this World Cup, or who do you think is the dark horse of this World Cup? Who you are not counting them out yet, not counting them in, but they could,
For me, truly, I would say Sri Lanka, because I think their bowling is,
more than Pakistan, more than Pakistan.
I feel so. I look at Pakistan. I think they're going to finish at best fifth in the table, most likely sixth. So I mean,
I agree.
Fourth, in my view, fourth New Zealand, fifth South Africa, sixth Pakistan, then seventh Sri Lanka. But if Sri Lanka get lots of spinning wickets to play on, and also Bangladesh for that matter, you can't rule them out. So the only nations you can probably rule out are Netherlands and Zimbabwe. Yeah, they're not going to get enough wins. I mean, how are they going to get 6 wins?
I think, but I think Bangladesh and Sri Lanka will be the ones who will, reduce those number of wins for the top four. I think those are the two teams who will create a problem for the number 4th team. For the team who's going to be in your top four, the top three, probably for the fourth one, for your South Africa, Pakistan, and New Zealand, I think Bangladesh and Sri Lanka will create a problem. And all of them don't play spin well. All of them.
Yeah. And we haven't even mentioned Afghanistan, but they're going to probably get 2 or 3 wins as well.
Yes.
And let's say they get 3 wins. That means they're also going to beat one of the big nations as well. They're not just going to beat Zimbabwe and Netherlands. They're going to take someone down.
Afghanistan is truly capable of beating Sri Lanka. Bangladesh, if they manage to beat Netherlands and Zimbabwe, they're in the game. Like, Wow.
Exactly. I mean, I would be very surprised if they made semis, but especially with this one group format, I just don't see it's possible. But let's say, I mean, they could get 4 wins and cause the other teams, some sort of problem. So,
But I really like this format, David. I mean, I remember the 2007, the West Indies heartbreak. I remember where
yeah,
it was four pools, and you had like 4 teams
exactly.
each. And
I remember when England were the host nation in 1999,
yeah,
and they went out. They went out within about a week, having
yes,
played 3 matches.
yeah.
And they had a World Cup song, a special song for the competition, and they went out on the day it was released. It was so.
Yeah, I mean, this is the best way. I think the World Cup. You of course have to beat everybody to win it. I think this is a good way
Yeah,
to put the teams, in balance. And
I mean
coming to,
they've
yeah,
used this format twice. Last time
yes,
2019, and then
yeah,
actually the first time was 1992 in Australia when
rain
actually
saved
Australia
Pakistan.
struggled.
You didn't
Yeah,
have,
the famous Pakistan win,
yeah, you didn't
and
have the duckworth
they
lewis net. You had those
uh-huh
is cut
yeah
off. That rule before
we had this.
PL.
Yeah, and it was really harsh on the South Africans in the semi-final. I'm
Yeah,
sure you've seen it. They ended
I
up in this
think
bizarre.
they just returned to international cricket after, you know,
Yeah,
yeah, they were the
a
team.
year before.
Yeah, the year before.
Yeah,
Yes. I
and
think,
they were playing England, and they needed a gettable rate, something like 8 and over. And then there was some rain, and because there's this special rule about how they took away the overs that the opposition had scored the most runs or something like that, and then they ended up needing 22 or
yeah,
44. So, but what people don't talk about is that actually South Africa hadn't bowled their overs sufficiently fast. So
yes.
England in the first innings had only ended up facing 45 overs. So that
That is,
also didn't help them, and that was actually within their control before the rain came. So
I think, very interesting. Just a personal suggestion, if you have time, Ravichandran
yeah,
Ashwin is doing a podcast with Harsha Bhogle. There are some 4-5 episodes. Go have a look.
okay,
It's pretty
I
interesting.
will.
They're
Yeah.
talking about those, 5 World Cups. There are like 5 episodes and 4 episodes,
Mm-hmm.
and they discuss the World Cups, the eras like the 75, 79, 83 to 92, and
Mm.
just can recap how they used to play. And I
It was
was watching
very,
the other day.
very,
It was
very
pretty interesting.
different in those days.
Pretty
But I
interesting.
mean, I really liked ODI cricket back then as well. I mean, it was the first couple of World Cups were 60 overs a side,
Yes.
and it was all played in whites, and
All
it
played
was
in
all
whites.
played in England. And if you scored 250, that was a great
You're done.
score.
Yeah, you're sort
That,
of.
that was it. But it was a different time. We didn't have sort of the leg side wide rule. We didn't have these massive bats. We didn't have short boundaries. I would actually
And you
love
didn't
to
have,
see.
I think the no ball rule was not there. The bouncer rule,
There was no
the
free
limits to
hit.
bouncers were not there for the first 2 World
It
Cups.
was very. It was much more like test rules, just applied, varied a little bit for ODI cricket. And I would love to see the current generation go back in time and actually see how they could handle those conditions, the
Just
rules,
to
the
remember, do you
equipment.
remember that not so long ago, I think in 2011, that cycle, they had this rule of the power plays where you have the first 10 overs power play, and then you had a bowling power play and a batting power play.
Yeah,
And in the beginning, well, earlier,
yeah, yeah.
later on, you had to take it before the 40th over, but in the beginning, you leave that batting power play till the end, and the last 5 overs was a killing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember in the 2011 World Cup with New Zealand and Pakistan, and New Zealand were like, they hit some 120 runs in 5 overs because they had the power play and Ross Taylor went crazy in Candy. So, and there was this.
So you wanted to keep you keep wickets in. Yeah, so things have changed and the rules have varied a lot. I mean, I personally, I've got no problem with the rules now, really, but they are very much in favor of the bat.
Yes. I mean, very much in favor of the bat, and a lot of things could change. I think one of the rules which I want to be tweaked is probably give one bowler a few more overs to bowl,
Maybe like 12 or 15.
12 or something, come on. Like, otherwise, I mean, the other day, even Bumrah he was like, Australia went after him. He was something for 81, and, players like, if you can whack Bumrah, you can whack anyone, and I think there should be, I mean, I think there should.
I would love to see.
Yes.
I would love to see a gimmick, like a bowling power play, where the batsman can't score in 1/4 of the ground, something like that.
Yeah.
And
or the bowler chooses which side batsman has to score, and that's it. Any other side of the boundary, you cannot score. And
because the bowler can't bowl down the leg side, so why not?
Yeah, why not?
You can. There's all sorts of gimmicks that could be applied, but yeah.
So, I mean, coming to as we're discussing, coming to the last segment of our podcast, already, when the ODI cricket started, of course, even I love ODI cricket, and because of this too much T20s, T20 is not my thing. Coming to the ODIs, I mean, in the beginning, when it used to be 3.5 hours, you finish your batting, go take a 40 minutes break, come back, 3.5 hours, 7 hours plus 1 hour, 1 hour extras, match over. And today, you're taking 4.5 hours for one innings, and you're playing till 1 a.m. in the morning. You're playing till 12.
It's too long.
Do you think, somebody told, I mean, there are again, oppositions, and there are people who say no. But do you think, like, now 50-over cricket is... Do you think it, firstly, I think we have discussed it before, but, again, I'm pushing this question. Do you think 50-over cricket needs a revamp in terms of number of overs? Or do you think ICC just needs to be strict and finish their quota in time? That's all. Too much of ad breaks is killing it. Too much of, drinks breaks. You have to finish it in 3.5 hours.
Personally, I think it's more the latter. I don't think there's any problem with the 50-over format per se. I think it's actually great. As I said, initially it was 60 overs, then eventually they settled on 50 overs, and there is absolutely no reason why you can't bowl 50 overs in 3 hours. In a T20, I think you have to bowl 20 overs in like an hour and a quarter, hour and 20 maybe. So you can bowl 50 overs in 3 hours or just over 3 hours. And then the whole game should be done within, 7.5 hours. I think absolutely no reason why that can't be the case. So for me, the format is great because it actually it allows a team to recover. That's the biggest problem with T20 cricket is, say, if you're chasing, you lose a few early wickets, you very rarely come back into the game. 50 overs, you've got time to rebuild. You've got time to, the ball wears. There are different bowlers who can come into the game at different times. It's a little bit more like just a one innings version of Test cricket, just a bit shorter. And that was what it was aimed at. Initially, the whole idea of one day cricket was that we wanted a game where people can come along, spend a whole day at the cricket and get a result. And also it's great for TV as well, as the people who are calm.
Yes.
But as you say, now it's become a bit more drawn out. Now there aren't so many ODI games played. And the problem is not, for me, the ODI format. The problem is there's a little bit too much T20 cricket being played, so we can't squeeze it in.
I mean, we're hardly seeing those bilaterals. I mean, that was the ODI cricket main bilateral. You tour a country. Now, the norm used to be in India, Australia tours India, they play 5 ODIs and then 4 test matches and then go
Yes,
back.
sir.
Now they come, they play the tests, they go back, play Big Bash, come back, play the ODIs, go
Yeah,
back, come
exactly.
back again for the T20s. So, yeah, I mean,
You know, I've felt for a long time that the way these series should be played, these bilateral series, they should all be played the same. This will never happen, but they should all be played the same. 3 tests, 3 ODI, 3 T20s, and it's out of 9. Every match counts. Maybe you could make tests like weighted, so they're a bit more significant to keep that as like the elite format. But I think this 9 game format would work perfectly for everything, including the Ashes, including India v Pakistan, whatever it might be. This is how everything is played. But it's not going to happen because, as you say, there are multiple different squads. There's all these T20 franchises that are taking over. They're getting longer and longer. We barely have time to play.
I mean, you have a T10 now, you have the Canada League as well. Yeah, I mean,
we have T10, we have the 100 format in
the
England.
100 and IPL is getting bigger.
Bigger and bigger and bigger. It's taking, how long is IPL taking? 3 months? It's
no, not three. It's like, I think 50 to 60 days. And this time it was the longest, I think, because of the 2 more teams, the last 2 years. And yeah, and there was a time, I think, in the IPL before they used to play 2 games, like say 3 days a week, they used to play 2 games. Then for the broadcasters now, because there are too many stars and too many teams, so you have to get prime time. So you can't have 2 matches on. So yeah, I mean, these are the things. I mean, you won't ever have a Royal Challengers Bangalore game in the afternoon. You will always see those Kolkata Knight Riders playing in the afternoon because there's no star value and people are not going to switch on their TVs. Well, it's a lot of broadcaster pressure also, which I feel, yeah, I mean, I think the problem of T20 cricket is it is killing ODI cricket. And I mean, I'm very surprised myself that it took me a while to get back the interest. India played a lot of ODIs, but it was just this South Africa-Australia series which put my interest back. Otherwise, it was like a no-no. I mean, anyways, David.
To be honest, I don't think anything is.
Yeah.
I don't think anything's going to change. I think the horse is bolted. I think ODI cricket, it's just going to be limited to the odd series. Mostly played in the year of the World Cup, 2027 next. That's already committed to by the ICC. So, that's going to be South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Namibia. So that will happen. I think they've also committed to 2031 as well.
Australia.
I don't actually remember. But yeah. So I mean, we know that ODI cricket isn't going to die for 8 years, but there's not going to be as much of it as before, for sure.
Yeah. So David, before we close our podcast, randomly, who's going to win the World Cup?
Well, I said before England are going to defend it. I'm going to stick to it, but let's see.
I want India to win, but I agree with you. I'll get a lot of hate, but I agree with you. I think England.
Yes, I can imagine.
I think the team which beats England, I think will win the World Cup. That's how I'll put it. I'll just reverse what Michael once said. England are the team to beat. Yes, India, of course. India will be my number 2. I think England are the team which are well equipped to play in India as well. Even in, what we talked about, the turning conditions, that will challenge them, but they are the team to beat.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, if you're in the knockouts, anything can happen, can't it? If I was India and they were playing England in the semis, I would prepare a very rough pitch.
Yeah, I think the message is quite loud and clear for the pitch curators also. And I will be very surprised if India-England game, not any other match, India-England game, if the pitch is flat, I'll be very, very surprised. and
Me too.
I really
Me
want
too.
a spicy wicket so that it's not about England, it's about India. If it's a flat wicket, I think, yeah, their batsmen are gonna take Bumrah for cleaners. Yeah. So yeah, I
But
mean, let's see.
we'll see.
Let's see what happens.
Mhm.
But yeah, mate, I mean, that's the end of our podcast. We have run pretty long. Huh?
Yeah,
It's
thank
1 hour.
you.
And thank you for taking out time. And
My
yeah, of
pleasure.
course, I mean, you're too kind to accept my invitation all the time. And thank you, David. Thank you very much.